Tape Deck Media.
Step right up. Listen to the Awful Service Podcast. It's future radio on your computer phone. You've heard of Hannah and Barbera, Laurel and Hardy, Sears and Roebuck, now Doyle and Cocazello. Are you a bean counter at your boring job? Listen to the Awful Service Podcast. We've got segments, we've got guests, we've got Karens.
The Awful Service Podcast, available where all podcasts are streamed. Brought to you by Tape Deck Media.
Ruddle me this, ruddle me that. We got the riddles that'll make you chat. Oh yeah, baseline stuff been through this tight. Get your funk on, we're rocking tonight. One more time.
Good morning, Ruddle Maniacs. It is episode 120 of the podcast, Ruddle Me This. I am, as always, your faithful host, Taylor Ruddle. Now, I am recording this episode probably as late as I ever have recorded the day before release. It is currently 11 p.m. on the 4th of May, 2025. You will be listening to this probably at about 6 or 7 in the morning on the 5th of May. Reason for this sort of odd update is because I was planning on doing a sort of reflection and I suppose evaluation of my 2-year anniversary going full-time as a comedian, battler, whatever I am, which was actually happening today on the 4th of May, which thankfully very easy date to remember as it's kind of become the unofficial Star Wars Day. And I was going to do a sort of 40-minute kind of chat about maybe the things that I've learnt during this 2 years, maybe some pitfalls to avoid, but I got to be honest, I've been in a kind of negative headspace for the last week or so, and I felt like I wouldn't be doing it from an objective point of view. And I didn't want the whole sort of 2-year anniversary thing to be I didn't want it to be leaning towards negativity. I think it's important to be realistic, but at the same time, I didn't want it to just be me complaining and moaning for 40 minutes about it. So what I've done is I've actually bumped forward this episode of the podcast where I am joined by Tristan Miller, who is a comic originally from the States, who is currently residing up in Auckland. And Tristan and I have sort of become quite good friends. Maybe the last, not a lot of time recently, maybe the past couple of months. I've been a guest on Tristan's podcast. Tristan has quite a few. There is Focus Projects, which is where we created a sort of pitch for a movie from a single word prompt, and then quite possibly one of my favorite podcasts that I've been wanting to do for ages. And actually, now that I think about it, it was one of the first movies that I wanted to talk about when I was starting this podcast, as Tristan and I talked about the movie Kangaroo Jack on Tristan's podcast called Movies to Fall Asleep To. As it turned out, Tristan and I have, I think, very similar taste in movies, and honestly, I just really enjoy talking about movies with Tristan. So we thought we would do a Tiny Joys. Tristan bought a list of Tiny Joys to talk about, but we, of course, talk about comedy and movies all throughout. Conversation was a lot of fun to have, and I hope you enjoy it just as much as we enjoyed having it. A couple of plugs to get in for this week before we get into the interview. My good friend Gerard Doherty is in Christchurch this kind of end of the week, so on Thursday night he's going to be joining us at the Laugh Cellar. You know it if you've been listening to the podcast, every Thursday at the Austin Club. Then on the 9th, we are running a comedy show called Crafted Comedy. That is going to be me, Steve King, Tim Kelly, and Gerard, and that is at the Crafted Coffee Company. I'd really love it if you could get tickets to that. They have been moving kind of slow, to be honest. I'm going to be taking a poster in there first thing tomorrow. Well, this morning, if you're listening on the day this episode drops. It's just $10. You can even bring that on the door if you want to come along and watch that. And then on Saturday, the 10th of May, I'm going to be doing, I think, a 15-minute spot at the Good Times Comedy Club on their show Big Laughs. That one is $30 to come along, but I am struggling to remember the exact lineup off the top of my head, but Gerard will be there, and I think, I'm sorry, I don't remember the other two acts on it. You can go to their Facebook page and find that. I'm too cooked to make sense at the moment. One other quick plug is Tristan has got a comedy special coming out called Manic Impressive, which I believe is going to be going up for free on Tristan's YouTube channel. So the link to that will be in the description of this podcast. I believe that is dropping on the 15th of May. I will be checking it out, and I reckon you should as well. Tristan is very, very funny. Alrighty, so with that, let's get into the interview. Please welcome to the show stand-up comedian Tristan Miller. Tristan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you. I feel welcome.
Yeah,
welcome. I feel
great to talk to you again. We just did yours last week, so it's great for the shoe to be on the other foot this time. Hopefully it's a relaxing experience for you. How's it? You doing well? Everything all right?
Yeah, going good, except for, trying to find a longer sponsorship for my visa. So if you're listening to this and you want to hire a desperate American, please.
Get amongst it, yeah. What are your skills that you could offer people?
I'm good for morale. Number one, definitely a personality hire.
Nice.
Number two, hardworking. I got that American Protestant work ethic going in me that will never go away and make me so anxious. And then I've worked in hospitality, social media management, and as an early childhood educator.
There you go.
So heaps of stuff, take your pick.
I like to think I'm probably the opposite. I probably get hired in spite of my personality. You know what I mean? They have to really look past okay, well, he's going to do good work. So, here we go.
You and almost every other man, it's all good.
Yep. I suppose we could give a little bit of backstory to the listeners, because I do have some American listeners. Shout out to all two of the Floridians listening. How long have you been doing stand-up for?
Oh, sure. I say 7 years because I subtract 2, because for 2 years we were asked to stay inside in the States. Because with your lockdown, it was a couple of weeks, and then you went for almost a year and did a couple more weeks. And whereas, America, everything's big. So we did one big one. Yeah. And everyone went insane, and we've never recovered from it. So I remember, sorry, just this memory came back to me.
Please go right ahead.
Where it was 2020, middle of lockdown. There was an open mic on a roof, and I'm doing my set. I'm doing 10 minutes. No one's getting paid. And I say out loud, "Why are we all here? We could all die." And it got a huge laugh. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I understand why I'm here, because I'm desperate for attention. Why are you guys here?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was some, and that was they were breaking the law technically.
Wow.
It was this really sort of weird, everyone had a curfew and had a quarantine, and so we broke that. Technically we were breaking the law, which is I guess the ghost of Lenny Bruce was proud of us or whatever.
Absolutely. Was it heavily enforced, that kind of thing? Because I guess there's a difference between a law if it's not really enforced and a law that is enforced, right?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
If the cops had kicked down the rooftop access door, would it have been arrests made, or would it just been all right, get out of here, guys?
I think it would have been for all the white people, it would have been get out of here, guys, and then they would have done whatever they wanted to everybody else. Right. Quite frankly speaking. But there's this venue in Brooklyn called Tiny Cupboard. They're great. And they started off with a rooftop as well in 2020, and then someone who was in a wheelchair bought a ticket and was not informed that there was no way for them to get up, because you'd have to go up this fire escape to get to the stage area. And so they had to shut that down. They were we were pretty lenient with you, and now it's just, we're done. But the other thing about that, I did a show there, and it wasn't safe. There was 100 people there. They all left at the same time, and I felt the roof buckle. Oh, God. And I was like, this is so frightening. I don't want to do another show here.
I feel like we had an incident in New Zealand where there was too many people on a balcony many years ago, and I just thought, I've been in situations where you think it's probably too many people in the space, but I'm not a structural engineer or something like that, so I don't really know, but I can imagine when you feel the roof sink in a little bit,
undulate.
You're is this what it? Is this the beginning of the end kind of thing?
Truly, and as someone who's been in a total of one earthquake, and it was when I was down here. Yeah, it it was so scary to me.
Yeah.
Because I'd never experienced it. Whereas I feel like here you all would be a little bit more like, okay, well, just, ignore it. But this is all to say, 7 years I've been doing comedy.
Yeah, it's interesting the response. I think how you feel about aftershocks is like
Mm.
it's determined by how traumatic of an experience you had in the big one. Do you know what I mean? Because like
Oh, yeah, true.
I got off really scot-free. Like we had a little cinder block wall fall down at my house, and the place was a mess, obviously, but we got off really, really lucky. But then you'd hear stories about people that would get woken up in the middle of the night by an aftershock, and that would be their night fucked. Like they can't go back to sleep, and they're worried about, is this going to be another big one? And so I think it's a real sort of that first initial one determined kind of how you
Mhm.
feel about them going forward. But one thing
Yeah, I
know,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
if it makes you feel any better, all that post-traumatic stress has made Christchurch audiences probably the best in New Zealand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't hear that often about Christchurch
Oh,
audiences,
really?
but yeah, it's
No offense to everybody else, but out of my
Interesting.
experience, yeah.
They are definitely a specific type of comedy audience in Christchurch. Like they're very like heckling is not a big issue here. Like I've been heckled maybe 5 times in 10 years or something like that, if that. And I would write that off more to people being drunk rather than deliberately wanting to like derail the evening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. I think that New Zealand audiences are like chatty, but they're not heckly, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yes, you do get a bit of chatting. We
People will turn to each other and go, "Oh, that was a good one," or they'll make a joke to their friend, and I'm like, "I can
Yeah.
see you."
Yeah. I had to really train myself not to respond to that because I would
Oh, yeah.
always think like I'd be like, "Oh, what was that?" And I'd like try and interject, and then I'd like, "Wait a second, no, that's just for them. That's just between those two. Like they're probably
Mhm.
mentioning a friend's name that I don't know who it is." And yeah, so that's very interesting to hear. One thing that the earthquakes served as a great it was a great move I had in my social kind of toolkit was when I remember one time we were running a gig and it was an outdoor gig, and outdoor ones can be tough because you feel like you're bombing even if you're doing quite well because the laughter doesn't kind of
Yeah.
bounce back at you. And there was a couple of Christchurch old boys at the back, and they were just sort of talking to each other about how it wasn't very good or something. And one of them kind of said something to me about it, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, mate, but if there was a city that could use laughter, it's got to be Christchurch, right?" And just like that, they're oh yeah, bloody good on you guys for doing this, and it immediately flipped the tone of the conversation. And so
That's so good.
yeah, and I probably wouldn't have as much of an effect now. This was sort of some kind of 5 years ago or something, but
Mhm.
it's useful every now and then.
Yeah, true. I think it's just like makes people a little bit more willing to go, "Oh yeah, number one, frankly, life is short, so we should
Mm,
enjoy it." And number
mm,
two, like for when I first came here in 2023, I was touring a show about mental health,
uh-huh.
and I'm making jokes about like suicide and stuff, and people are like more on board there. Whereas I also did it in Wellington, and they were, shall we say, a bit more touchy about the whole subject.
Interesting. Oh
Because,
man.
they're very progressive, but they're also like, is this okay to laugh? I'm like,
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm speaking from personal experience. It's
yeah,
all good.
yeah,
But whereas Christchurch, I feel like, is more willing to go with you for some like more dark humor,
yeah.
or,
I would agree with you there.
you know, a little bit more like which, coming from New York, obviously that's a lot
Yeah,
of it. A lot of New York comedy is like, isn't it crazy how we all want to just die? And then you
yeah,
do that
yeah,
in like Boise, Idaho, and they're like, we don't feel that way. We
yeah.
actually like our lives.
I got my
You know,
truck. I got my house. I got my
yeah.
dogs. Yeah, I'm happy.
I'm
Like,
the opposite of a blues song. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We did this show last night. It was called Naughty But Nice, and it was
Mm.
a very interesting way of getting around some of the hurdles you run into. Like I can't typically do dirty material because my image is quite cuddly and I'm sort of like a Barney the dinosaur. You know what I mean? Like it's sort
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
you don't want to
Yeah.
hear that from me,
Yeah, I
and
feel the same way about being angry.
you
I
can't
got
get away with
crazy.
angry.
Yeah, I can't get away with angry because like I got crazy eyes and people go, there's something gonna happen. This person's just admitted to being mentally unwell and now they're yelling. Ugh, you know.
And they're 2 feet from me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, So what we did was we brought two comics. There was 4 comics in total. For the first half, we brought 2 of them out, and they could briefly introduce themselves, and then the audience could ask questions. There weren't a lot of questions from the audience, which was interesting, but then the audience decided who they wanted to see do clean and who they wanted to see do dirty. And then
Interesting.
what we found was that the comics who usually worked dirty but were working clean were getting a better response for, you know, jokes they might not have gotten a good response for usually, because I think the audience was going, good on you for making it work, and you know you're obviously uncomfortable, but we're going to like kind of shepherd you through it a little bit. And then alternatively, I was getting good laughs off of material that wouldn't normally work for me because it was like pretty clear that I don't normally talk about it. So it was a very interesting little reverse. It was like reverse psychology we pulled there.
Yeah, true. I think that that's very funny. And I feel like when it comes to dirty stuff, my being from the Midwest,
Yeah.
I have a real aw shucks thing about me. And I grew up like really conservative Christian. And so anytime like one of the reasons I'm not particularly crass is like my mom was like, that's not funny. Whereas my dad was like, you know, that's pretty funny. But my mom was like, absolutely not, that will not fly.
Yeah.
But what I find is if I say a dirty joke and then I get embarrassed about it, it works really well because you get the initial like pop of what? No, from you. And then if I go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, like that also
Nice.
will, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like doubling down.
Hell yeah. Let's get into some of your joys then, shall we?
Oh, sure, yeah.
What was the first joy you had on your list there?
I have as my number one, and I
Is
don't
it
think
the
these are-
movies?
Can I tell you? There is movies on here, but these are not in any particular order. I feel like they're just the first time ones.
Yeah, totally.
Is a 9 a.m. coffee, a 9:30 a.m. coffee.
Is there any specific reason you've chosen? I mean, I get it, but 9 a.m. I like the specificity. I can't speak properly, but you know what I mean. The 9 a.m. What is about? Is that your Goldilocks zone?
It is a bit because it means I've woken up in time to do a lot of stuff with my morning. Lately, my schedule's, because I'm in between jobs at the moment, my schedule has been absolutely munted. So 9:30 a.m. means I've woken up at 9.
Yeah.
I've gotten out of bed, I've made the coffee, I'm good. And there's something that's so peaceful about that moment where I'm like, if I could hold on to the feeling that I have at 9:30 in the morning, the entire day for the rest of my life, where I'm like, anything's possible. I have my cup of coffee, particularly if it happens to be a second cup of coffee. Yeah. Where I'm like, this one I'm experiencing. The first cup of coffee is just to get rid of the headache. You know,
gets you to normal. Then the second one's to enjoy it.
Exactly. And so I'm like, there's just something about that feeling where I'm like probably writing in a journal as well, or like figuring out what my day is, and then I get to go into my morning routine. But that first one of like just kind of locking in and going, okay, I can get everything done. There's like a level of hopefulness in the morning for me.
You've had your first victory of the day by just virtue of being up that early. I understand that. Here's a question I like asking people: if you had like no alarm or nowhere to be, and you were just like, like a not a Neanderthal, but like like a cave person almost, and you're only like, what time do you think you would naturally wake up every morning?
Well, it seems to be the case because, again, being in between jobs.
So you're living that life right now, yeah?
I am living that life. I'm in a little
hunter-gatherer.
In Tomikimikoto, Auckland. I'm in a little thing, and I'm just like hanging out. But yeah, I would say I think that generally goes to bed at 2 a.m., gets up at like 10 o'clock, 11, which is like fine, and it's the correct amount of sleep or whatever, and it seems to be all good. But it is like, again, having that Protestant thing of like, will you get up early in the morning to work? And I'm like, to what end? What about you?
Exactly the same as you, like, and that was the push and pull with my parents in school holidays. Is I think my parents were of that generation where it's like, even if you've got nowhere to be, you still wake up at 7 and you still go through your complete. Like, I mean, my parents are very disciplined in that respect, because I remember I was still living at home when they retired. And so that first week of my brother and I still working, and them not having to go to work, but still kind of like going through their regular morning routine was interesting. I think they've maybe settled into a slightly sort of, not lazier, but I think they're a little more relaxed kind of schedule. But I just remember, it was kind of, I remember being like, man, why? Like, if I didn't have anywhere to be and was the first day of retirement, I would not leave the bed until noon or whatever it was. And yeah, I think it just is a generational thing where like their generation was like you get up at 7 and then you're in bed by, I don't know, 10 or something.
Yeah.
Did you ever have that thing on Christmas where you've got like the uncles who are falling asleep at like, like they're always talking about, oh yeah, I got up at 6 today, and then they're asleep on the couch at like 3 in the afternoon after lunch.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I understand what I was like, where are you going with this? But yeah,
Oh,
for
the uncle on
sure.
Christmas? Yeah, no.
But more particularly, that would be more likely my grandparents, because my grandparents were dairy farmers for a long
Yep.
time.
Yep.
So they still get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning for no reason, despite being retired.
Yeah.
And then they go to bed at like 8, and you're like, okay. But every Thanksgiving or Christmas, particularly my grandmother would be like, okay, let me just rest my eyes for 30 to 40 minutes in this chair. And I'm like, I love that. As someone who does meditation, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Get a little shut eye.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It's, you've actually just made me realize my father was a dairy farmer for years, so maybe that's got something to do with the
I
early
think
starts.
so.
Yeah.
But for what it's worth, when I was here last time as well, I was staying with in an Airbnb with a slightly older woman, and she was like, yeah, we all get up early here in New Zealand. And then I would talk to people around my age and be like, nah, that's not the case. We only get up if we need to.
Yeah.
So I think it might also be a generational thing.
Yes. I think as well, probably from the generations where there wasn't a lot of stuff to do once it got dark. It's like, well, what's the point of being awake? Whereas I can happily sit on my phone until, the wee hours of the morning.
Happily, wow.
Yeah.
What's going on with you where you're happy when you look at your phone? My God.
Is that not how the average person feels when they're scrolling?
I would say it's not how I experience it, my man.
What are you fighting for your life there?
I really am. I'm really going, because like it's one of those things as well. Like I'm quite happy for a lot of my friends, but a lot of my friends are doing, that comedians that I started off with are doing really well for themselves. And I'm always like, one of these days, Miller, it'll be you. Don't worry about it.
Of course.
So there's an element of that. And, I also have a complex where grass is always greener.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's something I got a lot of issues with my personality, but that's a big one. Where I'm like, all my friends are in New York, and I'm like, I don't miss New York, but I do miss going and seeing my friends in comedy shows. But I hate living in New York,
I had that realization, and I suspect it's one of those things you can only learn the hard way. And I lived in Japan for about 3 years, and then I visited. We ran out of visas that I could apply for, and then came back here.
Brother,
and then yeah, and then I visited just before the COVID pandemic started. I remember sitting at the airport reading news reports of like it's left China, and I thought, oh, maybe this is going to be a thing, and then how right we were. And I had that realization where it was like, oh, it's actually not the city, it's just that I had a great network, and they've all moved away. A lot of uni student, doing exchange programs and stuff I used to hang out with, and my friends have all sort of got kids now, and it was just like, you're like, oh, actually, no, the city is not that special. It's just this kind of magical sort of network of friends that you had. And like, it's great to have a lot of things to do, but you need both. It can't just be a great thing. So I suspect perhaps you're yearning for the social network, but not the actual physical location.
Yeah, absolutely. And like obviously, there's more opportunities to do comedy and stuff. And, it's just getting into a routine as well here. Cause I'm only like a week and a half into living in Auckland.
Yeah.
So I'm still like, but with that being said, every comedy show I've got done or gone to, and people have remembered who I am, and I've been like, it's so good that you're back, and like really good to see you. And I feel so welcome and blessed to be here.
Yeah.
But it is but yeah, also like my best friend in the world, she lives in New York.
Yeah.
And, I miss her,
That's the tough part, isn't it?
Yeah. But also like this past year when I was living there, it's like perhaps the loneliest I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm good actually. But
I've heard that about New York. Is it's like it's a place where you can be surrounded by people, but you're actually like the loneliest you've ever been.
Absolutely. And this is what I'll say. I'll say a couple things about New York comics, and I mean this with love and respect. And if you're a New York comic listening to this and you know me personally, I'm not talking about you.
Yeah, just the other ones.
Which is, I say this, a New York comedian will never stab you in the back because that requires them thinking about someone else. So there's that, you know, the energy of you're like at a party or whatever, and you're talking to someone and you think you're going around, but like they keep like looking over your shoulder to see who else has just arrived. That's New York.
Right.
That's all of New York, not just comedy, but that's all of New York. That's dating in New York because there's so many people. You're like, yeah, but what about that?
Yes.
It's
Interesting.
like, shut up and just love the life you have. You know?
Yeah. That's, I suspect, what was I reading kind of recently? Oh, I was talking with a friend of mine about this idea of, you know, people always, we kind of get it put into us that you've got to climb the ladder and you've got to accumulate more and all this kind of thing. And then he's just started asking himself this question of like, what is it all for? And then actually realizing that like, oh, actually, most of the stuff he wants in life, he kind of already has. Like he's married. He has like good network of friends. He has some hobbies, and so he says whenever the mania of like, oh, I gotta do more at work. I gotta like whatever, and he's just sort of like, well, why? I just want to spend time with my wife and my friends. Like that's what he's, and like he can do that. You know, like it's not like yeah. So
well, I'm very happy for him.
I know, right? This guy flexing with his stable relationship and supportive, loving friends.
Ew. Oh, gross. Yeah.
So what was your next tiny joy there?
Oh, sure thing. It is going to the movies alone, specifically.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm a big solitude fan. Like living in Japan, they make it very easy for you can go to a restaurant alone and they're not going to look like sad at you if you say like table for one, you know what I mean? Whereas here, they give you this double take of like, you sure? Like, you know, it's like, yeah. What are some of the favorite movies you've seen when you've been alone?
Ooh, that's something I hadn't prepared a response for, but let me cast back.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll give you this one. I saw Cuckoo. It's great horror film starring Hunter Schafer by myself.
I've not seen that one.
Yeah, it's really good. She's fantastic in it. I'll say this, you know, if you want to know my thoughts about it, I have a review on Substack about it. But
I believe, did you just release that kind of recently?
No, this would have been last year. But,
oh, okay.
You know, but
I did see a movie review come through on my email.
Yeah.
What did you just watch? It was that.
So I married a axe murderer, and then also Megalopolis is now.
I started trying to watch that and couldn't get into it.
Oh, no, it's one of my favorite films of the past year.
Really,
to be honest. But Cuckoo's really good. My only issue was with it is someone who like knows a thing or two about birds. I'm not a birder. Don't come at me. I'm not a birder. I just like birds. I don't go and look at them, but if I see one, I'm enchanted. Like whenever I hear a bellbird, I'm like, but some of this stuff was reliant on bird knowledge, and so I was like, I saw some of the twists coming. But because it is like a Cuckoo. Then also my favorite film of last year I saw alone. The first time I saw it twice in theaters, which was Love Lies Bleeding with Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien. It was really good. It's a crime comedy starring two lesbians. It's a perfect movie. It is so funny and so weird.
Yeah.
There's a moment where Kristen Stewart delivers the line, huh? In a way that just like really gets me every single time. It's like two idiots being in love and being crazy. And I love it so much. It's so good.
Hell yeah. I have one thing I can not recommend to do. So going to a professional wrestling show alone sucks. I've got like I think I've told you I did some ring announcing for it last time, and I'm just like a fan, right?
That's so cooked.
So like I thought, because like I went with my brother for the first time, we loved it. It was great. And then the second time my brother he hurt his back or something, so he couldn't come out. So I was like, oh well, it's just watching matches, you know, whatever. And then I remember just sitting there being like, you don't realize how long the gap between the matches are when you've got no one to talk to, and you're just like on your phone. So yeah, movies alone, great. Wrestling alone is not great.
Yeah.
What are some other activities that would be good or bad solo versus with friends? Like
Mm.
I'm trying to think. Roller
Well,
derby probably falls into the same thing as
any
wrestling,
kind
I
of
would say.
sports, because there's always some waiting around.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, any
yeah,
kind of sport, you should probably have at least another friend to go, this is some
yeah.
bullshit. I recently went to a concert alone, and that
How
was
was
an
that?
interesting. It was interesting. It wasn't bad. My main issue was that my phone battery was low. And
Oh,
so it was like
yeah.
at 20%. So I'm like, okay, I'm locked into whatever is happening in the moment, which is fine. It's not bad, but but I was like,
Did you just
not
get anxiety watching the battery like
a
go
little bit.
down?
And like, God bless the people over at Tuning Fork. They did charge it for me for a while. Then I was on it too much again. And
Oh man.
and it was mostly the fault of me that because I was just like not in the mood to socialize. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like just kind of thinking my little thoughts. I'll say this about,
Thinking My Little Thoughts is a great name
yeah.
for a comedy album, by the way.
Sure, thinking my little
Tristan Miller.
thoughts.
I'm just thinking my little thoughts.
I love this running bit where you're like Tristan. It's so funny.
You did it
But
once, and I'm going to run it
yeah,
into the ground.
absolutely. But I was thinking my little thoughts and just hanging out. And like I'll say this about New Zealand as well. There's not like in New York, there's a culture. One of the reasons I moved here was I was on the train and I had my noise canceling headphones on,
Yeah.
a mask, and sunglasses on because
Yeah.
like the lights are too bright.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to live in a place where I have to push everything out.
Mm.
Whereas here, even if it's like a big city, it's still pretty quiet.
Yeah.
I don't feel compelled to be like listening to a podcast all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that level of anxiety. And I'm like, this is nice. So this is all to say, even though I wasn't like looking at my phone or whatever, I was just like hanging out and just like thinking, and I could have gone up to someone and started chatting. We were all there for the same thing. And you can just go, well, what's great about a concert is you can go, well, what's your favorite song? When did you start listening? That you can start a conversation with someone that's about the thing you're doing rather than like, hey, who are you?
Yeah. That's true. You've got an in kind of there. Like I suspect I've heard it's easy to start a conversation with someone if you both have dogs, because then
true, yeah,
you're sort of just like requesting information about the other person's dog, and then that's like an easy way to like sort of jimmy your way into a conversation, I guess.
True. But contrasting that, the movies, that there's no pressure to talk at all. So you can just go, let me zone out and just be like, let me experience this by myself.
Yeah.
And then write a little letterbox review or whatever about it.
Do you know, this is the thing that because I'm currently on the sofa with a laptop in front of me, and like I've
brag.
I know, right? Look at me. This is what happens when you're in the big time, kid.
Some of us are on an air mattress right now.
At 3:30 in the afternoon, sitting in front of a laptop. But no, I found that if I have like with if I'm watching something on the laptop, because I've got the keyboard and stuff there, I'll find that I'll compulsively like pause it and then go look something up or whatever. Whereas I've discovered that if I put something on the television and then put the remote somewhere I can't reach it, I am way more likely to lock in and take in the whole thing. And for like, I was talking about this with someone the other day about the compulsion to, like, if you start reading a book, you want to complete the book and that kind of thing. And I'm terrible for starting a movie or a TV show and then not finishing it. So that's been a little hack. And then, if you think about the cinema, that's like the next level up from that, because you couldn't influence what's on the screen if you wanted to in the cinema. You just have to sit and watch.
That's true. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I do a similar thing where I won't watch anything on my laptop, but I have an iPad. And so in order to like look stuff up at the iPad, you have to like make the screen, like put it in the little corner. And I'm like, well, that's a terrible experience.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I think that's very wise.
Here's an interesting question for you as well. I listened to this podcast called The Rest is Entertainment, and I've heard that apparently cinema, like attendance and ticket sales, is kind of on the downtick because of streaming and stuff like that. And one of the hosts had his suggestion for how he would, like, I guess, quote unquote, like, save it if he suddenly came into owning a cinema and like how he would turn it around. I was wondering if you found yourself owning a cinema, do you have any ideas for what you would do to attract people to come in and watch like in person more?
Yeah, let me think here for a second.
I can talk about his one while you think.
Yeah, please do.
So Richard Osman, he's the host. He said that what he would do is he would sort of remodel it a little bit where the bar or the snack bar in the lobby is kind of like a regular bar. And he would go back to playing like an episode of Friends at 6:30 every single day on the same schedule so that people would come out and watch this episode of Friends and mingle in the lobby. And it would be more of a social thing, I suppose. And I feel like maybe he said more about what he would do, but I think he thinks the solution to it would be sort of give people a reason to be here on this time and a little routine that they could settle into after work. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. I just wondered if you had any thoughts on what you would like to do.
I think that's a great idea. I think also like I'm a big fan of like as much as everyone's like streaming is just cable now. I'm like, well, it doesn't have the benefit of cable, which is that you get random shit put in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like all I want is ability to go into Netflix and do a playlist of like these are the shows I want to watch in random order, an episode from each, you know. But anyhow, for as far as the cinema goes, I feel like making it a community hub is a really great way of going about it. And kind of similar to what I was thinking. I mean, the main thing and they're already doing this in the States a lot, is you would want to make it a repertory theater where you're playing classics.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's been so many re-releases in the States over the last year, which is understandable because like cinemas aren't doing well. But did I and a bunch of other people see Fellowship of the Ring at like 4:30 on a Tuesday?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So you'd want to do that. And then I think inviting, getting, you know, this wouldn't, if I was owning one cinema, this would be the way I would do it. I'd do like a
you don't have to
film
worry about a
club.
chain. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would do a film club and I would do a podcast around that. I would try and get people who are well known to come and, you know, premiere films or talk about films they love.
That'd be cool.
And do talk backs.
Do you
and
remember
that sort of thing. Yeah.
Do you remember I mentioned when we did your podcast, I mentioned Alice Cinemas here in Christchurch?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
So they have something that I saw. It was my friend Jeff, the one who, with his fancy wife and social network, the one who was visiting last week. So he went in there, and then I saw just on the sofa somewhere here, it was a little booklet. You know, it would have costed them nothing to print this off, but it had a checklist of the best, 500 best movie, or maybe it was 100. I can't remember. It was like the best movies of all time, and you tick which ones you'd seen. And just
nice.
that little thing, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I was looking through the list thinking like, oh, this one I've always been aware of, but I've never actually seen it. And like, just it's how dumb human brains are, right? Just this little seeing it in a list with tick boxes was motivating me to like, yeah, I should watch that when I have a minute. And so yeah, the idea of a film club where you also sort of almost like spoon feeding stuff to people again, like okay, everyone, the film club is meeting on Sunday, and we're going to watch this, Casablanca or whatever it is, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, there's one here in Auckland as well that I've been meaning to go and see. They do one a week, and so I think I'm going to go next week. But also like in New York, there's the Museum of the Moving Image, which is a museum of film. It's really lovely. You can see like most of the Muppets there, and like they have like the puppets themselves and like Chewbacca's mask and stuff like that. But in addition to that, they do retrospectives because they have a cinema there, obviously. And so my buddy Scott Interrante, he and I went to a couple of films last year of Frank Oz, who has directed quite a few films. And he was there and he did a Q&A afterwards. One of them was with Steve Martin, which was really incredible to experience that. Yeah. But this is all to say, doing retrospectives is a great way of getting people because the thing is at this point, most films that are not like big blockbuster movies, you're going to only be attracting people who like movies. Yeah. Like in probably an obsessive way. So you might as well appeal to that crowd, The other trick of it is like, I've gone to see weird films in like basically a bar that has a projector and a good sound system, but like there's 25 seats. Yeah. And you just, appeal to like, you make it kind of a niche thing. Yeah. Because I think the days of like cineplexes are kind of gone, which is,
Yeah.
in a way a shame, but also like
Mm.
they were never too great to begin with. It's kind of like the Blockbuster thing. Everyone remembers it fondly now, but it also was like an evil corporation,
Yeah. And
It's
there was a lot
like,
of stuff that annoyed us back in the day as well.
yeah, true. You know?
I love it. Um, Brilliant. So then I was gonna say one other thing about the going to the movies then. How do you feel about going to a restaurant alone? Do you enjoy it or do you
Oh, I love
feel
it.
you love it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I love to go specifically if it has a counter,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
just going and sitting there and like, or a bar and just like eating alone at the bar. Like I love being alone. I love being alone in public. That's one of the reasons. It's one of my favorite things about touring comedy is like it's just me.
Yeah.
I'm just hanging out by myself. I
Yeah.
can order what I want. Obviously, like to share a meal is such a beautiful and intimate thing.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But to sit in a restaurant and go, again, let me think my little thoughts.
Yeah.
Let me just do whatever. It's so nice.
Yeah.
You as well?
Yeah, I love it. I especially love it. Anything, because I think, did we talk about this? How I said the shine of driving on the road for a gig has kind of worn off for me a little bit. Like,
No, you haven't mentioned
so
that, but
yeah, like
say
I
more.
still remember my first ever like on the road gig was in Palmerston North, and we took a little sort of propeller plane up there, and the whole flight I'm just like bouncing in my seat, like, yeah, I'm doing the road. Like this is my first road gig, and like I'm just like stoked to be doing it for, work. And I did a tour with a comic. I think it was this year. My sense of time has all gone, but recently. And just remember getting in the car, and it was kind of just a like, okay, 5 hour drive. It's just part of the job now. Do you know what I mean? Like the shine has really
Yeah.
worn off it. However, whenever I'm on the road, like at the Nelson Fringe Festival I did last year, and I have like a pizza restaurant that I specifically go to each time that I'm in Nelson, and the shine has not worn off on like on the
Yeah.
road alone. Food is still hits like it's day one for me.
Yeah, I hear you. Like, here's the thing. When I got to Dunedin to do the Dunedin Fringe
Yeah.
Festival, you better believe I went to Burger Fuel the first day. You better
Oh, yes,
believe
because it's
I,
from there, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it is. And also, like, I hadn't had it in a while, and it's
Yeah.
fucking good shit, man. And
Yeah.
then, like, and then there was another restaurant that I wanted to make sure, but more importantly, in Dunedin, there's Best Cafe,
Oh,
which does gluten-free fish and chips, and I have celiac.
wow.
And so it's so good. And they give you like the tartar sauce and like a little oyster shell. And like, it's like a classic kind of Kiwi diner
Yeah.
situation where it's just like card tables with tablecloths over them. And I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
it there. If I could eat there every day, I would, but it's,
Best Cafe, is that what it's
25
called?
bucks a meal.
I'll have to look into that. I have
Yeah.
this interesting experience that I think at the time it was one I wasn't enjoying, but I look back on kind of fondly. Is there's a bar in Dunedin? It's called Al Bar, and it's kind of like a Scottish themed or
Mm,
Scottish owned bar.
really? In Dunedin?
Yeah.
Scottish themed, if you can believe it.
You get me all the time with your sarcasm, and I'm like, yeah.
It's
I
one of
have
those. I was talking to a New Zealand comic years ago, and I made some comment. Well, and then they started explaining, and I was like, "Nah, nah, mate." And he goes, "I can't believe an
Yeah,
American outsubtled me.
I
Fuck."
I was getting ready to. Well, actually, no, because Dunedin was settled by Scots, so it was exactly that.
Yeah, man. No, no.
You tricksy New Yorkers were
Yeah,
always.
I'm a family of wise asses. Can't help
um,
myself. But anyway, you were saying, I'm so
Used
sorry.
this Alba,
Albar.
and it was real busy. It was real crowded. We went there after a show. It was with a Scottish comic was the headliner, and we went there afterwards. And at the time, I remember sitting on the most uncomfortable stool, and it was like everyone was shoulder to shoulder, and it was real cramped and real busy. And I remember kind of wanting to leave at the time, but now that I look back, I'm also like, I wouldn't mind going to having another experience like that again. There's something cozy about it, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it is interesting how these places, atmosphere is a big thing for memory, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like it is like the vibe you're putting out, whereas like I haven't traveled like what I'll say this about touring as a road comic.
Uh-huh.
I've done it a fair amount by myself. I've like
Yeah.
taken planes by myself and like I've toured around by myself. And there's something that is appealing, but at the end of the day, you go home and you're in a room by yourself, and it's a
Yeah.
little sad. It's like just a little, not a lot, but there's this like kind of wistfulness to it.
Mm.
However, recently I took a road trip to move all my stuff to Minnesota from New York with my buddy
Yeah.
Glenn Tickle, who's a great comic and a good friend.
Tickle is a great
Um,
name for a comic.
Yeah.
Is that
His
the real
first,
last name?
yeah, man. His
Wow.
first comedy album is called Glenn Tickle, parenthetical, Yes, Really.
Yeah.
And like,
love it.
of course. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
But he and I had also done a couple other gigs on the road,
Uh-huh.
and chatting with him for hours on end.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could do this not every day, but like probably at least once a month of like have a
Yeah.
5-hour drive with this motherfucker, because he and I
Absolutely.
love to we love a yarn, don't we? You know, we love a wee chat.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's, so that part of it. And then like when we went up to Albany, New York for a convention, because he does college gigs. And at
Yeah.
the time we were repped by the same guy. And so I was like
Cool.
hanging out. And went to the hotel room and we're just like hanging out and talking till like 1 or 2 in the morning. And at a certain point I just went, I love a sleepover. Because that's what it felt like. I was
It does
like,
feel like
yeah.
that, doesn't it? Yeah.
I love a sleepover. I love the weird intimacy you get when it's like 2 in the morning and you're like
Yeah.
talking, and your guard's just down because you're so sleepy,
Yeah. I had that. Used to have that when I was living at a share house in Japan, and it would be like you'd meet these people that would.
Share house.
Yeah, it was. You know what I'm talking about?
Love our share house. Yeah.
And yeah, you would have these random like intense 3 in the morning conversations with people, and you'd be like, "Oh, so how long are you staying for?" And they'd be like, "Oh, I'm just in here because I'm refreshing my visa for Korea." Or there was something where you have to leave
Yeah,
for like
yeah.
a day, and then you'd just be like, "Oh, okay." And then it's kind of it's an experience I haven't had in years, but it's a good one. I think everyone should everyone should go stay at a hostel for a night and just meet people. I think is a fun thing there. I always like not great at like making first impressions. So when I first moved there, I thought, oh, it's like people aren't going to want me to just walk up and say hi to them, but actually people love it when you like, it's like, well, they're staying in a hostel, right? So they're pretty open to meeting new people. Like it's kind of
Yeah,
part of the
yeah.
gig.
You're both there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we covered everything from that. What was your next tiny joy there?
What I love is making a joke for one person. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're like,
absolutely, yeah.
This is my friend James, and if I say this,
Yeah,
he's gonna fucking laugh. He's gonna lose his goddamn mind.
yeah,
And I love that so much. I guess you'd call it like an inside joke, but it's not quite that, because it's not something that's been repeated.
yeah.
But it's just like knowing someone well enough where you're like, this specific reference,
Yeah,
or this specific, they will lose their mind, but everyone
Yeah.
else will be like, okay,
yeah. I find that way when I'm sending memes to my friends, is I'll be like, okay, this is a good one, and then I'll click the send one. You have the check boxes of like
Yeah.
who you can send it to, and I'm always like really like scrutinizing. I'm like, who's gonna
Thank
yeah.
God, to be honest, because I have a few people in my life that just send me. I'm like, well, you think this is funny, sure.
Yeah,
This is not my cup of tea,
yeah.
but yeah.
I remember reading somewhere, and again, I don't know where I read this information, and it's second or third hand, but they say like dudes will send a reel because they think it's funny, whereas women will send things that you think are funny. But like, I'm more on the other end where I'm like, I'm not going to send them something that's like, I don't think is going to appeal to them. That's like, you're just bombing with your friends then, right?
Well, I think there you go. That's the difference. Is like you have enough awareness as a comedian that you're like, well, this joke's not gonna land.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's very funny. I couldn't speak to the genderness of it, but like that seems correct. That seems, but
Dudes do have that kind of like, like the way I experience life is the only one and the correct one. So
yes, I've heard this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can add to that last one anymore. I think it's a great feeling.
It is good. And it like I've done it enough where like, I don't know, you just like you see someone's eyes light up and you're like, yeah, that was just, it's really like that was just for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's so special.
I also think I also find this interesting in stand up is because like I've had sort of been it's like jokes that are still funny, but like let's say for like the average person they're like a 5 out of 10 laugh, but then for the right person the reference just hits and
Mhm.
it jumps to like a 10 out of 10. Like I've watched jokes and been that 10 out of 10 laugh where I've thought like, wow, that's a hell of a niche reference they put in there, or it's a wording or something like that. Like Frankie Boyle, do you know you would know him, the comedian?
Oh, do I know who Frankie Boyle
Yeah.
is? Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not
When he
kidding
does
you.
his Taskmaster
Yeah.
and he's like got the little fake guy in the oven and he goes, "Oh God." It's so funny. He's so
That's
good on
right.
that season.
He
Anyway.
he pops these weird references. Like he was talking about Jimmy Savile, the monster, whatever, and
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
used the phrase. He was talking about how many marathons he would run a week, and he sort of converted a few words together, and he used the phrase pedophilic range. And I was just like, that is such a weird word to coin, and like. I just felt like as someone who's into like etymology and that kind of thing, I was just sort of
Yeah.
like, that is such a bizarre thing to come up
Some
with.
Here's the thing, folks. Sometimes a joke is just a fun series of words,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? And here's the thing, people from the United Kingdom in particular
Uh-huh.
recognize that.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just like a series of syllables that makes you go, "What?"
Mm.
And that's so good. That's such a good example of that as well.
Yeah. Such a
God,
because like
he's really funny. He's a really good follow on Threads, by the way, if you're on Threads.
yes,
He's a
no,
really good.
I
He's so angry all the time. I wish I
yes.
could be that angry publicly. I just don't have it in
Yes,
me.
that's right. It must be tiring though, and it does seem to have taken a toll on his marriage. I believe he got divorced a few years ago.
Oh, that's tough.
And yeah, but I think at the same time, if he's anything like his onstage persona, that's a hard person to live with. You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's still in touch with his kids though, so that's
Well,
good. At
that's
least he's a
good.
present father. Um, shall we move on to your next joy?
Before we do, can
Please.
I quick run to the restroom?
Of course you can. Can we pause this recording? Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
you
Let me just
absolutely
pause
can.
that. And we're back. So what was your next joy on the list there, my friend?
Sure. It's making food with friends.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I find
Yeah.
being in the kitchen with someone else a challenge, but tell me more.
Oh, sure. I mean, like, that sounds like you have a control issue that you should probably work out.
I can tell you why I think it is, but
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, and then
I
we'll get to my
suspect
stuff.
so I have that type of personality where I
It's
struggle to
your
delegate.
podcast. I'm just looking at it.
Yeah. I struggle to delegate. So when I was a manager, I used to
Mm,
work at a pizza chain and I would tell somebody to do something and they would do it like not up to the standards we needed. So then I would just redo it
sure.
myself. And I think my brain thinks because we've done it, I think it's also like if it's not up to standard, then at least it's my fault and I don't have to like blame anyone else. So like I just sort of yeah, I don't mind cooking on my own as the it's I suppose it's not like I'm Gordon Ramsay, telling people what to do in
Mm.
the kitchen. I'm just sort of like I'm just happy for like the people that I'm cooking with to sit and yeah, you just chill out and I'll handle it. But tell me about what's fun about cooking together and maybe you'll change my mind on it.
Well, I mean, what you just described is also cooking with friends. You know, you take turns making a
Yeah.
dish, or
Oh,
someone
that's
brings a
fine. Yeah,
dish
I
over,
like
you
that.
know.
Yeah. With company. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, cooking with company, I guess, is maybe a better
Oh,
way of
that's a
saying
nice
it.
alliteration there.
Yeah. It's a video game to be sure. Cooking with company.
Have you heard of this one called Overcooked?
Oh yeah, I've watched a fair amount of
My
couples get close to breaking up playing that game.
My friend, he I won't name his name in case he doesn't want the story out there, but it is a funny story. He, we were in some kind of public holiday or break. We had a few days off, and he mentioned that he was playing Overcooked with his girlfriend, and then the next morning he sends a message to the group chat being like, "It's only 8 a.m. and I've already been summoned to the living room to play Overcooked." And so he was like, he suddenly felt very like trapped. I think it was probably his idea to play it, and now it's
Hmm.
like, when are we playing more Overcooked?
Yeah, it's really a fun game. And it's like, I think another thing, kind of tangentially, is one of the worst things that's happened to video games over the last 10 years is the lack of couch co-op.
Oh, don't you miss
Because
that?
like it used to, you come over to a friend's house and then you just play video games because you can
Yeah,
sit in the same
yeah.
room. Whereas like I've played online with friends and it's just not,
Not quite the same, yeah.
it's not the same. And you know, it's fine to play Fortnite or whatever, but like,
Mm.
come on, man. Um, Cooking with company I really like because it's such a beautiful act of service to like be like, let me cook you a meal.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, you know, if you want to help, you can. But like generally it's whatever. I also feel like if you have like a full kitchen, there's a really beautiful vibe of like if someone's cooking and the other person's at the table, like just hanging out. There's again, I'm finding more or less everything on my list is like I just want to lower the barrier for intimacy
Mm.
because when you're kind of distracted with a task, you kind of just answer honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you kind of can't, you know, you can't chop onions and not answer truthfully at the same time. You
Uh-huh,
know what I mean?
uh-huh. Yeah, 100%.
So I really like that. I also like really like when friends cook for me because they go it's kind of similar to the meme thing where they're like, okay, what would Tristan like?
Mm.
You know, let's make a soup. Like, let's, you know, go crazy here. Or like, I don't know. I think it's just a really beautiful, intimate thing to be like, let's share a meal.
Yeah.
Because, you know, evolutionarily speaking, it's when you're the most vulnerable.
Mm.
You know, it's why sharing a meal seems so, again, intimate. I was trying to think of a different word, but like, because when you have your head down
Mm.
and you're putting something in, that's when you're most vulnerable to attack,
Mm.
other
Mhm.
than like, I guess, pissing. But like, you know,
No, I stay woke when I'm
yeah.
when I'm in the restroom. Nobody's
Head on a
creeping up on
swivel.
me.
I knew my phone addiction was bad when I was at a urinal and I pulled it out. You know, I'm like, what am I doing?
I saw a great tweet that was a dude say he was pissing with his phone in his hand, and an old guy slapped him on the back and said, "Put your phone away and have a proper piss." That's one of my favorite tweets I've ever seen.
Oh, that's so good, eh?
What is your favorite food? I mean, obviously, like let's say, the taking out of the equation like taste and stuff like that, but what is one that you enjoy making for other people?
Oh, I make a really good salmon fillet with sushi rice.
Ah, yes.
It's salmon. You get like a pretty fresh cut of salmon, but you want it to be like not brand new because that's the thing about fish cuts is you actually want it to be like maybe 1 or 2 days. I heard this from
Really?
Anthony Bourdain, so
Interesting.
take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Or in this case, lemon pepper, which is what I put
Yeah, there it is.
the the salmon there for you. And then sushi rice is really great because it's just like it's sugar and vinegar and
Yes. Yeah. I've made it
sorry, I have a
once.
kind of urgent message here.
No, no, please. You want me to pause it?
No, should be just fine.
Okay. I'll talk about my favorite thing while you do that. So, to the listeners out there, if I'm ever preparing a meal for you, one that I like to do is I can do handmade pizza pretty well. Like I used to work,
nice.
like I mentioned when I was a student, I used to work in a pizza restaurant. So I still kind of remember, I tell you, man, my forearms have never been as jacked as when I was kneading pizza dough every day for like a couple of hours. Like
Sure.
honestly, when I see the state of my forearms at the moment, I'm like, I wonder if they would let me come in once a week and just do the dough for like 2 hours and then go home. Like, I would be pretty happy to do that and then just have these like monstrous forearms like I used to have. So yeah, doing a good. The trouble is like the reason I struggle to bake and do like anything that requires you to make it and then like put it down again and then give it like a couple of hours to proof. I don't have the patience to let it rise. I just want to do it like now.
Mhm.
And so I think if I had better foresight, I would be like, okay, make the dough in the morning. The person's coming over in the evening, let it proof for a bit and whatever. But
Mhm.
I am just shocking for being prepared like that. But yeah, I do a pretty good homemade pizza. I've often tossed up the idea of buying one of those like proper pizza ovens that you have at like
Mhm.
almost like a barbecue. Do you know the ones I'm talking about where they've got like a
Oh
flame
yeah,
inside
like
them? Yeah.
yeah.
However, when I looked up the price, they are freaking expensive. So
Yeah, there's several $1,000s, yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So
it's not like a small investment.
yes, yeah. So the oven it is for now. That's what I
Yeah.
go for. Um,
Um, but yeah, I think it's really, also like if you have like a specialty dish that your friends like, kind of
mhm,
like what you're saying, that's
mm,
always good as well because you can be like, oh, when your friend is like, cool, I
Yeah.
know I'm going to get a good deal out of this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not, that is also
Oh,
good.
here's a good. Oh, no, but you had another thought there.
Well, yeah, it's also like a great, like, I mean, it's classic first date or second date stuff where you're like,
Cooking
come
for someone,
over,
yeah. Show
like,
them how
come over,
domesticated
cook.
you are. Yeah.
Exactly. Specifically if you're taking the relationship a little bit more seriously,
Mm-hmm.
where you're like, look, I'm homey,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Another thing I love to do is invite someone over at least once a week, so I have to clean my house. That's a hack for you.
That's a great hack.
Mhm.
The other question was, how do you
Mm.
feel about going to a potluck?
I love it in
Yeah.
theory.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who has celiac disease, it's kind of a
That is tough.
minefield.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if everyone's on board with that,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love a potluck. I mean, coming from the Midwest, it's a huge part of all culture.
Yeah.
Like it is a massive part to come over to someone's house, or at least it was growing up. I don't know,
Yeah.
you know, so much anymore, but it's a huge part of Midwestern culture to go over to someone's home
Yeah.
with it and to bring what we would probably call, probably what we call a hot dish, which
Yeah.
is basically a casserole or like
Oh, yeah.
what you might call a mince pie,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in a dish and like kind of like shepherd's pie or cottage pie,
Yes. Yeah.
but it's made with various different kinds of food. Or what we would generously refer to as a salad, but it can be just a mixture of anything. Like we have what we call Snicker salad.
As in like
Which,
the candy bar?
yes, which is cut up, yeah, very American. It's cut up Snickers, grapes,
Grapes.
apples,
Okay.
and then a whipped cream base. It's like a dessert. It's basically a pudding.
It's almost
you
like
know.
ambrosia, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's like really good,
Wow.
but it's like in no way a salad. But also you do like what we call a pasta salad, which is cold pasta in like olive oil with various
Yeah.
vegetables in
Yeah.
it. It's good stuff, but it's nowhere near a salad. But
Yeah.
this is all to say, church potluck, particularly big thing
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
You know.
I actually had a question for you. Being from the Midwest, I've heard ranch is a big deal in the Midwest.
Yeah, bro.
And I've tried certain brands here in
Mm,
New Zealand, but
mm.
they didn't really seem like I feel like there's a better, I don't know, like a better option out there. Like, since you've been here, have you managed to discover a brand of ranch that myself and the listeners could try that is pretty
Ugh.
close to what you get back in the Midwest?
I haven't
Okay.
because I don't much care for ranch
Oh, there you
dressing.
go. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah.
However, I sense a YouTube video coming from this exact
Where we
premise.
do like a shot glass of ranch.
Yeah, like which one's like a blindfold taste of like, okay, we've
Cool.
got a certified Midwesterner coming in here.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but if they have Nature Valley here, I mean, it depends on like whether or not I would imagine what you'd want to do is go to like an import store,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
That'll be the
know,
move.
and then see what ranch dressing they have. The fact that you say ranch dressing is also
Sorry,
absolutely
ranch is how you should pronounce it
fucked
correctly. Yeah.
to me. Yeah.
Ranch.
Ranch dressing. The ranch
Oh,
dressing
yes, could
there.
you pass the ranch over to me, darling?
What is this? Also, the Grey Poupon.
The what, sorry?
Yeah, that's could you pass the Grey Poupon? It's a like a Dijon mustard.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
From the 1980s. It's like an old reference for me to make, even.
Yeah.
All your younger audiences are like, what the fuck are you talking
You
about?
never know who's gonna get it.
Nah, but I'll definitely look into it. But Hidden Valley is
Hidden
like
Valley. Okay.
S tier. So if
Okay.
you ever experience that, I'm just like mostly it's just like since it's made from buttermilk, it's just thick,
Yeah.
so it just doesn't sit in my stomach too well.
Yeah. Sounds,
Frankly, it's just like drinking weird milk,
Okay. Interesting.
But if
Yeah,
you're
just
into
yeah.
dairy, sorry.
Yeah. No, I don't mind dairy. Let's move on to your next joy.
Oh, sure, yeah.
What is your
Might
next
be-
joy there?
Is it the last one as well?
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it is. And it's a thing that happens and it makes me so happy and I love it so much is when you make someone laugh and they're sitting like parallel to you and they put their hand on your knee.
Oh, okay. Like
It's a
to
very
steady themselves.
Yeah, when they laugh and like there's a specific thing, like it happened recently in an improv class where I made someone laugh and they like covered their mouth, which is also something I do, which I find quite charming, where when you laugh. And then they also put their hand on my knee. And it's such a lovely gesture. in as much as like it indicates two things. One, I'm so comfortable with you to touch you like on your leg, which is sometimes seen as, you know, sexual, but in these cases is not.
Yeah.
But also, you made me laugh enough where I kind of have to hold on for dear life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's this beautiful thing. Again, it's about feeling close to people. My joys are when I feel close to people or if I'm by myself.
Right,
Did I mention I have bipolar disorder? And so it's very kind of, but it's a really beautiful moment, and it makes me so happy, and it makes me feel like I've genuinely made a connection and made someone laugh.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful photo I think about a lot of Billy Crystal, Robin Williams, and Whoopi Goldberg in a green room, and he is just Robin is laughing so hard, and he's like grabbing Whoopi's leg.
Yeah,
and it's just so beautiful, and so you could tell they were like really fucking friends.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's just beautiful.
That is like the whole idea of like touching someone to me is very like I don't it's you know like people almost say they don't even realize it when they like place the hand on someone's shoulder or like even the leg thing or something like that. Whereas like I feel like I'm aware of my hands at all times, and so like the idea of like laughing that hard and then my brain would have to go, now place your hand on their leg. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's not something that could ever happen involuntary for me. And I feel like even when friends are like upset, I'm like, do I place my hand on your shoulder or do I pat you on the back? I don't know. I'm just so like around people. I'm not good with like what I think I just assume that all touching is inappropriate. So I just don't like. I'm just gonna keep. Even though people probably would like a hug or something, maybe sometimes, especially like friends. You know, they want like a pat on the back or whatever. But I'm like. I don't know what people are comfortable with, so I'm just not going to do anything.
No, I hear you, and specifically, you know, coming out of the culture as we have over the last like decade or so, like that's an appropriate thing to be aware of.
Yeah,
but also like I feel maybe it's just me like where I can like suss out someone's energy.
Yes, so I can't do that. I think is my issue.
Yeah, fair enough. But like but even like you know. There's like friends that I'm like, if I fell asleep on top of them, they would just let that happen.
Yeah,
you know, stuff like that. You feel comfortable enough with people, or like, I also like, I think this is also probably coming from a theater background as I do. I went to drama school, and all that. Where like it's very touchy feely. It's very like Also, admittedly, it is like theater people are the horniest motherfuckers you're ever gonna meat in your goddamn life. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh,
are there any theater people listening to the show? Slide in our DMs. We'd love to meet you.
You're not wrong to do it. I am trying to desperately find a marriage of convenience. But
there you go.
Like, I feel like comedians are far more like, because the art form is so much like about yourself and it's
individualism.
So, yeah. Whereas like even though the instance I just gave you of like it being in an improv class, improvisers are also like far more open. As people like, and I don't know, I feel like I'm naturally a very physical person, and I had to walk that back,
right, yeah,
for various reasons. Number one, like I said, culturally, but more importantly, I'm pretty fun to be around, and I make physical contact naturally, and so people assume, understandably, that I'm flirting with them when I'm not.
You don't want to lead them on,
people. Yeah, and so I just like for a while I had my mantra, which is why give a hug when a handshake will do. But even that, I think I love a handshake.
Yeah.
I love specifically when you're first meeting someone. I don't know. I think there's like, again, there's a really lovely connection there, even if it is kind of more formal, because like the reason the handshake came about is like, and like a wave is like, look, I have no weapon in my hand.
Yeah.
Here, you can hold me,
and check,
and check it out. But even like that, like bit of physical contact, but like I'm much more likely to give a hug.
Yeah.
But like
the idea of a handshake is so funny to me because it's like, what are hands really when you think, you know what I mean? Like
true.
If you think about us, as just sort of monkeys, like, kind of where we're at now, and just the idea of like, I even find the idea of waving at people funny. Like, here are these meat sticks that I go through life with, and I'm just going to wave this at you as like, you know what I mean? Like something about waving is just so funny to me. And like, we're just sort of like, okay, well, we've met each other. Let's, clasp these kind of hands. And yeah, I don't know. Something about that is hilarious to me.
Yeah, true. I mean, I agree with you, but I do think it is just like a beautiful way of like, again, like I'm here, you're
Yeah.
there. Let's acknowledge each other, and also like this is friendly.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
Speaking of waves, I think New Zealand is a lot like the Midwest, and I've been recently gratified by that because I did my show about that exact subject in Christchurch, and
Uh-huh.
a bunch of Minnesotans were in the audience
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
happened to be over, and they were like, "It's just like home," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Thank you, good." But the thing that really solidified it is I don't know if you've ever been on like an inner city bus or whatever, or just a bus in general, and you see
Yeah.
the bus driver do one of these for those
Oh,
listening
to
at
the other
home.
bus drivers.
Yeah, I'm miming holding a
The
steering wheel and
Yeah.
just doing my index finger up and down. That's the little wave. Everyone in Minnesota does that.
Yeah.
You just give a little wave. If you're in the crosswalk and someone stops for you, you give a little wave to say
Yeah.
thank you. Just a little hello. And it's
Interesting.
just it's such a beautiful thing. And once I understood that to be a cultural thing here, I was like, I think I might be home, actually.
You can fit in, yeah. You're like, all right,
Yeah, I think it'll
not
be
so
all
different
good.
in our cultures.
Yeah,
I saw the
we're not so different, you and I.
Yeah. We're like
Spider-Man.
what is it? Al Pacino and
And Heat.
De Niro and Heat. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Now
that's
that we've been
funny.
face to face. Yeah.
I think I sense a meme coming from me with that.
There you go.
Those stills.
There you go. I was going to say I saw the funniest it still makes me laugh to this day. There was bus drivers. I was going to school, and the bus drivers here, that exact little. I've definitely seen them do like bigger waves and stuff like that. But in this particular one, the other bus driver who was coming towards us, he flinched and he threw his hands up as if he was, worried that the other
That's
driver
so
was going to
funny.
swerve and drive into him. And I just thought, what a wee jokester this driver was.
That's so funny. That's really good.
I have the weirdest 2 degrees of separation story. You ever heard this expression that there's 2 degrees of separation in New Zealand?
Yeah, I recently heard it for the first time at a show last night, actually. But yeah.
Oh, how's this for wild? Please go ahead.
Can I tell you an exact example of that?
You certainly can.
I saw Rose Metafeo,
Yep.
the world's funniest comedian, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Perform in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow.
This last year. And there were some gals who had pizza in the audience, and her being a comedian, she was like, "Oh, it's nice you got pizza." And she goes, "What kind is it?" And then the person said pepperoni, and she went, "Oh, fuck, you're from New Zealand, aren't you?" And then she goes, "Okay, how do I know you?"
Yeah.
And the person, no shit, said, "Your mom is my primary school teacher." Was
Oh
my
my
primary
goodness.
school teacher.
That's
She's
so
like,
funny.
"That's true." And it's like,
Wow.
even in New York City, maybe it's still applicable.
That is insane. I think I've heard that Irish people have that as well. Ireland is small enough where they all kind of know, like, yeah.
Because famously, the population got cut in half.
Yeah. Where was I going to go with this 2 degrees of separation story? So this dude who used to drive the bus, it wasn't like a school bus, but it was the public bus that I caught to school every morning when I was in high school. He randomly did stand up for like a few weeks because they were having like a work function where I guess they all had to show off a talent or something. So he wanted to do stand up. And like, it's funny because I remember him being like a real chatty, real sort of like jokester of a bus driver. And then some 10 years later, I was like, this guy looks familiar. Like, how do I know him? And then, he did the mics for a little bit. And then eventually it came up that he drove a bus. And I was just like, wow, this is the dude that used to like make jokes and stuff at like to the passengers and all that, and then he's giving stand up a go. It was the weirdest the weirdest New Zealand 2 degrees of separation thing ever.
So funny. Was he any good?
Well, so he was doing.
Well, that's not a yes.
Here's the thing: is like he's a good performer, but we later learned
damn,
he was just doing like he was doing like Doug Stanhope bits, and I think he'd just Googled like stand up routines and was just trying to get good at them so that he could perform at this work thing of his. I didn't really mind that because it's like, well, he's not like trying to be a comedian, you know what I mean? He's just having a go sort of thing. So, but I mean, look, he delivered those jokes very well, is what I'll say. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's very funny to
Yeah.
be like also like because you were a kid when you saw him last,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like weirdly intimate, you know.
Yeah.
And also like kind of reminds me of there's an experience that I've never understood fully because I was homeschooled, but a
Yeah.
lot of people like when you see your teacher in a store for the first time. Whereas me, I'm
Oh.
like, she drove me here. Why is this an issue? But like,
Yeah.
whereas it feels like kind of that is a joke that I wrote.
Nice. Nice.
So beware, that was not improvised.
That's all right.
But I feel like that bus driver situation is like this sort of like sense of unreality where you're like, what
Yes.
the wait, you're not driving right now. What are you doing?
Yeah, yeah. It's like our children struggle to
Mhm.
conceive that like when they leave the classroom, it like they think almost like it ceases to exist or it stays in a kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
stasis where the teacher just stays there until they come back.
Hmm.
Um, I
Is
recently
that?
had a great experience. I emailed a former teacher who was like a bit, you always kind of have, well, actually, never mind. You won't have been through this, but you always have a one or two teachers that are kind of, they leave an impression on you throughout,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I'll say this. Like I've gone to other schools,
Oh, you
but
have? Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like I did a post-secondary education in my last year of high school, and I have like a theater teacher I got back in
There you
contact
go.
with, and
Yeah.
he's like the most important person in my life
Yeah.
educationally,
And
other than my mom.
yeah.
Other than my mom.
Well, she's,
Ooh,
yeah.
good catch there. Ooh.
So did you get, yeah, did you say you got back in touch with this teacher recently or was that,
Like we'd always been like, we've like our friends on Facebook, but then like over the last couple of years, I like have befriended him, and it's this
yeah.
weird thing of like becoming colleagues with someone who is like a
Uh-huh.
mentor,
Yeah.
But is that what is your
Yeah.
experience?
So I had this teacher in year, it was 5 or 6 maybe. I was about 11 years old, whatever year that is, whatever grade that is. Um, who I had always just remembered as being, he was the first teacher that was kind of funny. So in my mind, it was sort of like he was
Mm-hmm.
human. And I, I think I just Googled his name once and then found out that he was still teaching. So I thought, I'll just email his like school email on the website and just see like if he remembers me and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
we ended up recording a podcast. We were just sort of catching
Oh,
up. And I don't think it'll see the light of day because he's quite like he's just really concerned about whether like we didn't talk about
of
anything super
course.
controversial, but because he's a
Yeah.
teacher, he's just I think he's just worried that like something that we don't realize is whatever. So
Hmm.
but it was great because sometimes when you meet people, you go back and meet like mentors from your past or whatever, and it's not you kind of have these hopes that it's going to be this incredible interaction and it's not. And thankfully it was like exactly what I want it to be. And we had like a great 2 hour conversation and we'll just like text each other jokes now. And it's worked out exactly
Hmm.
like I was hoping it would. So that's,
That's
sometimes it
great.
can happen, right? But the dynamic when you're now just two adults is an interesting one, right?
Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird to think about.
Especially if you've ever run into an old boss and then like for me, I almost revert to the age that I was when they were my boss. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
regression thing happens, and then you're like, wait a second, we're just two men now. Like
Yeah,
I don't have to
yeah.
be differential to this guy anymore. Like yeah,
Something I say a lot whenever I get nervous about meeting someone who either was a former mentor or like is just someone that like is a little bit higher up than me on the social ladder,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I go, well, he's not my dad.
yeah,
So who the fuck cares? Like, if
yeah,
he's disappointed in me, I've disappointed a colleague.
yeah, yeah. Someone on
Oh
the same level as
no,
you. Yeah,
fucking what are you talking? Even if they are above me, it's like it's so I annoyed a work coworker. Get who fucking cares? Um,
I annoyed some random guy.
yeah, it's like he's not my dad, he's not my mom, he's just
Yeah.
some guy that happens to be in charge of an opportunity.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it is a really interesting situation to find yourself in because like this I'll say his name, this former teacher of mine, Jerry Casper. He's
Shout
a
out to Jerry.
phenomenal, yeah, shout out to Jerry. He's a phenomenal actor, an excellent playwright, and more importantly, a phenomenal teacher.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons he's such a good teacher is the fact that he, despite teaching you, thinks you have your own inherent value. You're not like he always made it very clear that he had a lot of respect for what I do as an artist.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're talking as two artists together.
Yeah.
And he said something very, very sweet, which is like, when I met you, I could tell that you were
Yeah.
not like just fucking around. You were like
Yeah.
an actual person who wanted to do this and an artist. And, and so to reconnect with him that way was just phenomenal. And
That's great.
specifically as someone whose opinion I respect greatly.
Yeah.
And we do have differing opinions here and there about stuff, but
Yeah.
like, I'm always willing to hear him out.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just such a gift,
Yeah.
such a, if you will, a joy.
Yeah. A tiny, not even a tiny joy. We'll give that big joy.
Yeah, big joy.
Status. Okay. Well, as much as I could, I'm sure we could fill hours. I mean, even just talking about Star Wars on your podcast, I think we could have filled a whole hour talking about that. But I have to go and get ready for a gig that I'm putting on tonight. So let's get some plugs in. What would you like to plug? You've got your podcast, Focus Testing, which I got the name right now,
yes.
right? Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
Which I think by the time this episode drops, our one should be out. So go and
absolutely.
How do people check that out? Is it Substack through it?
So, if you want to watch it, you have to subscribe to the pay tier of Substack, which please do that. I'm in between jobs, as I mentioned several times. And then also on top of that, if enough people subscribe to that, I think I can convince the New Zealand government that I'm a quote unquote digital nomad and they'll let me stay longer. We'll see. I have to call immigration. Anyway.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I've paid $90 twice to be on hold with immigration from the state.
What?
Because like it's an international call.
God.
I know.
That's devastating.
Anyway, but you can just listen to it wherever you find a podcast. Just put in Focus Testing or Tristan Miller. I think there might be two feeds out there because of a mistake I made. There's one that is recently updated. Please subscribe to that one.
Go subscribe to that one, yeah.
The Substack also has a bonus podcast where I talk to people about their comfort movies called Movies to Fall Asleep To. The first episode of that is also available on my YouTube with Glenn Tickle, and he talks about the film Buckaroo Banzai, which is a crazy fucking movie that he's obsessed with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll be gigging around Auckland area mostly.
Yeah.
I think I could probably say this. I'm going to be doing Muck Around comedy May 1st, I believe.
Hell yeah.
But all that stuff's going to be in like on my website and on my link tree and all that, which I'm assuming will be in the show notes if you're halfway decent at your job.
Yep, I will check them in the show notes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I reckon I'll have my special out soon. So look for that.
I look forward to that. Look forward to watching that. YouTube? Or will that be
most likely, yeah.
Awesome.
Unless by some miracle someone gets back to me. I think it will be on YouTube, mate.
Nice.
I think it's fair enough,
I do a review of YouTube specials in my newsletter, so I will make sure I send all 12 of my subscribers to go and check that out.
I would, if you haven't seen it already, I'd recommend Grace Jarvis's YouTube special that she put out this last year.
Grace Jarvis, like Jarvis from Iron Man?
Yes. She's a New Zealand/Australian comedian who now lives in the United Kingdom. Highly recommend.
Cool.
I will look really it up. Funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Sick. Well, thank you for joining me, Tristan. Always a pleasure. I'm sure we're going to collaborate on more stuff in the future. As I said, I could just talk to you about movies for hours, but for the sake of the listeners, I will let you go now. Just thank you for joining me.
Yeah, happy to. And also, most likely, look for Taylor's episode of Movies to Fall Asleep To very soon. But it's been an absolute joy to be on this podcast.
Thank you for listening to Ruddle Me This. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can find me on social media at Taylor Ruddle Comedy on all the major platforms. You can also join patreon.com/Taylor Ruddle Comedy for free, which gets you access to all sorts of extras and behind the scenes content, as well as allows you to communicate directly with me and let me know what you think of the show. Tune in again next Monday for another episode of Ruddle Me This, and until then, Ruddle her out.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.
Hey Ruddlers. I joined a group of podcasters that we are calling the Trailer Alliance. A group of podcasters that share each other's trailers at the end of the episodes and generally support each other. So at the end of each episode for the next few weeks, I'm going to be playing a trailer of one of the members of the Trailer Alliance. And here's one of them now. I hope you like it.
Are you ready to turn up the heat on true crime? From blazing mysteries to scorched evidence, Crime to Burn is the podcast that dives into the world of criminal fires. Whether it's arson, cover-ups, or unsolved mysteries, we are lighting up the case files on every story.
With over 20 years of experience as a fire protection engineer, I'm here to help you understand the physics of fire and relate it to what investigators found.
Because if anybody can make true crime less terrifying, it's me.
Join us as we sift through the ashes to bring you the story behind criminal fires, including arson, bombings, and criminal negligence.
And I make sure you don't need therapy after. Tune in for a mix of expert insight, twisted tales, and a few laughs along the way. Crime to Burn, because sometimes the truth is hotter than fiction.